So, a lot has been going on the past few days. It feels like the past few days, past week, past 2 weeks, so much has been happening in such a short amount of time. A lot of things have flown under the radar. It's very difficult to know where to begin. Where I want to begin is discussing the two men that were found hanging in Mississippi. Now, all of this story is extremely strange to me. There are a lot of suspicious elements, so I'm going to tell you what the articles are saying, and then we can discuss what I actually think is going on, because I not only think that news outlets are holding out, and granted, sometimes there's a reason for that that's completely valid. Other times, they are holding out for reasons that cannot be justified, in my opinion, so we'll get into all of that. However, let's start with the facts. Trey Reed and Corey Zukatis, two men found hanging in Mississippi on the same day. Suspicious deaths stun state. Now, you may have heard the name Trey Reed because at least on my Twitter, it has been all over my Twitter, all over my social media. Generally, my algorithm is obviously pushing it, probably because of the things I research on Twitter and other social media. However, the name Corey Zukatis has not really shown up, but it is important for context's sake that there are two men, because I think that's what makes the case far more suspicious. Anyway, it says, Mississippi is shaken after two chilling and eerily similar incidents unfolded on Monday, leaving families, friends, and communities devastated and searching for answers. Within hours of each other, two men, one a college student, the other a homeless individual, were found hanging from trees in separate locations across the state, according to local media reports. The grim discoveries reported in Cleveland and Vicksburg have sparked outrage, deepened fears, and reignited painful memories of racial violence that continue to haunt the South. Calls for transparency and justice are growing louder as the public grapples with the shock. So let's start with the information we have about Trey Reed. Trey Reed found hanging from tree. The body of a 21-year-old Delta State University student, Trey Reed, was discovered hanging from a tree on campus Monday morning, prompting an investigation, the university said. Reports suggest that Reed was found dead on campus at Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi on Monday. Delta State University Chief of Police Michael Peeler said at a press conference that there was no evidence of foul play at this time. In a press conference, DSU Police Chief Peeler said at approximately 7:05 a.m., the university police was notified of what appeared to be the body of a black male hanging from a tree central campus near the DSU pickleball course. Peeler said that the individual was later identified as Reed and that an investigation into his death was ongoing. The DSU police chief stated that he requested the assistance of Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, the county sheriff's office, and the Cleveland Police Department to aid in the investigation. Officials disputed social media rumors that Reed was discovered with broken arms or legs. The county deputy coroner Murray Rourke told the Mississippi Free Press that he saw no broken limbs. One of the viral messages read, "Tell me, Trey Reed was found beaten with 3 broken limbs. What the fuck kind of suicide is that?" Rourke told the outlet that in his opinion, Reed's death was self-done, and I have reasons for that. He declined to elaborate, citing the open investigation. So this is really a massive point of contention, as you can imagine, in this case, because obviously, if there were broken limbs, that would be a clear sign of foul play, right? And initially, when I actually read of this story on social media, I went in when I read this article thinking, yes, the broken limbs, because I thought that people had gotten that from some kind of journalistic article, some kind of journalism anyway. I don't know where all of that actually came from, because in no article I've read has there been the mention of any type of broken limb. So I don't know where that came from. I don't know if someone just threw that out there. I don't know if there are other reports that I missed, but I read a lot of articles and found nothing of the sort. This is where my suspicions come in, because I don't know if there were broken limbs. However, no sign of foul play. I mean, obviously people unfortunately kill themselves all the time, but the concept of going to kill yourself out in public, and as far as I recall, I also read in another article, maybe it was this one actually, that the centennial of this institution was going to be celebrated later that day, which ended up being canceled. So you're going to go hang yourself when there's going to be a massive party on your school campus later. I mean, in the context of you want to end your life, the party doesn't mean shit, right? But the whole timing is also weird, because a public hanging is also a statement of sorts, in the sense of people do hang themselves oftentimes, however, it's in their household, in a small, secluded, closed space like bathrooms. You know, like, you don't really often see hangings out and about, and especially not on a university campus. So when I think of foul play, it's more around the lines of what would make a person decide to hang themselves publicly. And that's not to say it couldn't happen. I'm just saying that's very odd to me. It's overall just odd in my opinion. Also because granted, hanging yourself is a horrific thing, but it's not difficult in the sense of once you have a rope and a noose, hanging yourself is a relatively quick ordeal, right? If you make the knot right, quote unquote, so it's not something that takes ages, right? On the other hand, if there were foul play, like people on social media were saying that they thought that he was hanged by someone, that would take a lot more effort, because just imagine bringing someone's body on a campus where, granted, it was early in the morning, but still people could be out and about, and you're doing that. You're bringing a heavy body. If there were multiple people, I guess that makes it easier, but if you're by yourself, you'd have to throw the rope over a branch, pull up there's a little bit more of logistics involved there, which makes it a longer process, which makes it more likely for someone to see you. And also doing that in the middle of the night sounds like a relatively difficult concept in terms of visibility. So there can be foul play. I'm just wondering how it is that happened. So that's why I'm saying this case is so suspicious to me, because between the concept of someone hanging themselves publicly, which again, like I said, is not something I see often, and then also the concept of someone being able, without being noticed, to drag this body there and hang the body, neither of those super make sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something here. You guys can let me know, but it just does not add up to me particularly. Granted, if there were multiple people who wanted to kill Reed or who killed Reed and then subsequently hung him, then maybe that's a different story. But again, it's noticeable, right? So you're at a great risk of being noticed. And also, what kind of statement are you trying to make by hanging a body outside, right? Because typically a criminal doesn't want to be caught, so you'd think they'd hang the body inside if they wanted it to just seem like a suicide, but putting it as a suicide outdoors would imply some kind of statement. The same way that I think that if you actually did kill yourself and you did it in front of people, or if you did it in a place where people are going to find you, I also think that is a statement. So I really don't know what to make of it. And hopefully at some point they will elaborate on the broken limb theory, if they figure out where that came from, if any of it is true. Who knows? Delta State University President Dr. Dan Ennis said at the press conference that there was no evidence of a threat to campus safety following the student's death. However, the campus was closed on Monday, and several events planned to mark Delta State University's centennial were canceled. Delta State University is a beautiful place to be, Peeler said. It's unfortunate, this loss that comes heavy to our campus. Trey Reed's family said in a statement to Jackson News Station 16 WAPT, Trey was our little quiet light. He was sweet, well-mannered, and would give you the world if he could. We ask that you continue to keep our family in your prayers as we continue to navigate through these unforeseen times. Delta State University President Dr. Dan Ennis said in a statement, our community is deeply saddened by this loss. I've spoken to Trey's family and expressed our heartbreak. So I really wonder what is going to come out of all of this, because like I said, I really think that no matter what happened of the two avenues we said, whether this was actually a suicide or if this was a staged suicide, it just seems like a statement regardless, right? And I say that as someone who's been suicidal in the past. I've always thought of it as a very, very private matter. So even the idea of someone doing it publicly to me seems like there would be a reason for that, if that is what happened. So hours earlier at 1:30 p.m., police in Vicksburg received an alarming telephone call that the body of a male was discovered hanging from a tree in a densely forested area off the Ameristar Casino. As per Yahoo, the coroner identified the deceased as white male Corey Zukatis, 36. His death was confirmed by Warren County Coroner Doug L. Husky, who said Zukatis had been discovered at about 10:30 a.m., but released no further information. Very little is known about Zukatis' final days or the circumstances of his passing. Authorities have not released any evidence suggesting foul play, but the eerie similarity to Reed's death, both men found hanging from trees in Mississippi within hours of each other, has ignited nationwide outrage. Both the incidents have sent shockwaves across Mississippi, with some people suggesting they are not suicide but murders. One user commented, 2 young people lynched in Mississippi, 2 children, they had aspirations and a family. Police are already trying to convince us this is a suicide. Another echoed the frustration. Where is the fury over this? Where are the moments of silence? Where are the Instagram stories, think pieces, and flags at half-mast? These boys were lynched in 2025. Some advocated for united and acting. Think it's time to organize. It's been that time. Gotta come together as humans. This shit ain't right. To their families, healing. Something just seems incredibly off here. And granted, I think I am somewhat biased in this because I'm typically quite skeptical, but also what has been in the air for the past 2 weeks globally has me feeling like something's off. So maybe that's a bias that I have here, that I feel like something's off and therefore I'm projecting it here. Perhaps that's the case. But again, just having 2 people in the same state hanging from trees publicly, it just doesn't seem like that would randomly happen. I guess it's possible, but it just seems very unlikely. So a lot of people on social media, unsurprisingly, have opinions about this. A lot of people were calling for more attention to this case that they thought was going relatively unnoticed. Now, thankfully, there is far more attention now. But like I said, because there is so much going on, it feels like there is just this vacuum, this blur, where it's just one massive event after the other, and none of them really make sense to me anyway. One Twitter user said, if a black person is going to commit suicide, it won't be by hanging themselves from a fucking tree. Fuck out of here. So this isn't just an example. I'm not specifically referring to this content creator, but a lot of people don't think that this is a suicide, especially in regard to Reed, because like I said, Zukatis is not super mentioned in all of this, which makes sense because Zukatis was homeless. Homeless people are so often left out of narratives, so it's not right, but it's not surprising either. So a lot of people were pinpointing the fact that Reed is black, was hanging, and like this user said, in their opinion, black people wouldn't hang themselves in this manner. This is extremely debated now because even there was a comment saying it's actually most common form of suicide amongst young black men, and then they showed a statistic. This one tweet has 51,000 likes, the one that says that if a black person was going to commit suicide, it wouldn't be by hanging themselves from a tree. So again, there is a lot of conspiracy going on around this, a lot of theories, and I think part of what makes this odd is not just the coincidence, but the odd circumstances generally, because again, it's not just that 2 people hung themselves in the same state and publicly, it's even just one person hanging themselves publicly. It's the concept of someone coming up with the logistics of doing all of that. And also, like I said prior, a lot of the times suicide is a relatively solitary act. Like granted, there are people who jump off bridges, that's done in 2 seconds and they're gone. Here it's not really like that. You're still in the public sphere after you've committed the act, and that's not something we see often. So every single detail of this, if you ask me, is suspicious as fuck. I do hope that at some point some kind of report comes out that actually informs the public on what's going on, because what's going to happen here, I can already tell you because it's already happening. People are coming up with conspiracy theories. Government trust right now is at the lowest of the low between Epstein and other things. Just nobody trusts the government. From whatever side you're on, nobody trusts the government. So it already feels like so many cover-ups are going on here. And we have this added on. People don't believe it. People don't trust the government. And people certainly do not trust the police, which all equates to anything that's being said is going to be doubted, but especially if you're not saying much. To some degree, I guess they can't really win because whatever they say, the government, the police won't be believed. But the fact that it feels like information is being withheld, I think makes people far more antagonistic, aggressive, frustrated, which honestly, those are valid feelings to have, but at the end of the day, they are in control, unfortunately, the government, the police, and we unfortunately just have to sit and wait and see what they say, what they decide to release. But I do think that there is something wrong here with these 2 deaths, and I can't really pinpoint what happened. Maybe you guys have theories, but I don't know. I'm just very confused at all of this, honestly. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.